Hello and welcome to The Dawn Plays, not another rebuild. In this series we are going to be managing everybody's favourite at the moment, Manchester United, but we'll be taking a slightly different approach in that we will be using the real world game mode, where all players will be signed on the dates they were actually signed, and we'll have no signings at all allowed for that first transfer window. We're going to try and play through exactly how Ten Hag has had to manage the season so far and see if we can do any better. If that sounds good to you, hit that like button and let's get straight into the video. Now that we've taken over, and as you can see it's pretty well known, Manchester United were extremely good under Alex Ferguson. That was a mixture of great management, he was quite a disciplinarian, and also fantastic youth that was coming through. And it's widely known that they've now fallen from the high standards which they set back then, and there seems to be a lot of things going on behind the scenes, but it's heavily affecting the squad, the development, and we see a lot of players going there and not really reaching their full potential or even going backwards. So how we start the season, you can see the squad is pretty decimated. From our little snapshot we can see that Mainoo is a defensive midfielder because we don't have all the signings yet at the beginning, and that's probably going to affect our pre-season just exactly how it affected Ten Hag's. We can also see from the expectations that supporter expectations is just to qualify for the Europa League, but they do want to see some good attacking football, and they want us to be competitive against Man City, which is understandable. Fierce rivals who are doing incredibly well, a lot of money behind them. Manchester United have spent a lot of money, but it just doesn't seem to have panned out. The actual expectations to the club seem to be a bit higher. They want to qualify for the Champions League, not the Europa League. They want to reach the latter stages of the FA Cup, be competitive in the Carabao Cup, and eventually moving on to 2024 season they want to be challenging for the Premier League title, which, if you look at how the season's gone so far under Ten Hag, competing for that Premier League title seems well off. A quick flick through this squad list, we can see that so many of the players are awaiting their transfer out. We have young goalkeeper, we have Dean Henderson going as well, we have another young player, Eric Bailly is going, Alex Telles, he's off to Saudi, Brandon Williams is heading off, Fred's heading off, Donny van de Beek would have been heading off, but no transfer seemed to come round. We then have Mason Greenwood who's going on loan, and we also have a couple of injuries. In terms of the transfers coming in, we can also see that we're waiting on Onana coming in on the 20th of the 7th, Buendia coming in on the 1st of the 9th. We've got Johnny Evans, Reguilon again coming in a couple of months apart. We've got Amrabat coming in again the 1st of the 9th. Mason Mount some point in July, and then we've got Højlund as well coming in the 5th of the 8th. All these players not having the beginning of your pre-season is going to affect cohesion. So we're going to go right through it exactly how Ten Hag experienced it, only in our case I will be putting all the players getting transferred out straight into the youth team, and we will not be considering them part of the squad at all. That is going to mean that we're going to have to play the younger players, which means we're probably going to have the difficulties which Ten Hag had. A quick flick through these transfers out, just a confirmation that all the names that we mentioned before, including a lot of youngsters. We've got some youngsters also coming in. Probably the main ones to know is Greenwood, his situation, Elanga going, who we could possibly have done with at the beginning of the season here. Fred going was an experienced midfielder out the way, who we're really lacking midfielders at the beginning of the season. And we've got Telles, a left back, and you consider the position which Manchester United are in, where they've had to play their centre backs out of position at left back because they don't have one, and Telles is obviously gone for a very minimum fee. The last one's probably Eric Bailly, just to consider he is also on the way out, but they've got enough centre backs at around similar level to what Eric Bailly was. Man United also have issues with the number of players who are out of contract. We can see quite a few, including some considerable names: Martial, Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Hannibal, and again a lot of youngsters who are probably going to be let go. But the sheer number of people out of contract here can't really be doing great things as well. for the team. In the case of Anthony Martial, whenever you actually see him play, he always generally looks quite good, like he does something for the team. His stats seem pretty good, but when you look at his actual record, you can see that he hasn't actually scored that much in his time at Manchester United. Even when he has played well, he's had a couple of okay seasons where he scored 10 goals, which, I mean, possibly that's an okay number for someone coming off the left-hand side. But he has played as a centre forward quite a few times, so possibly he should have scored more in the games that he has been on. Going forward, maybe it is time for his contract to be left to run out, but we are not going to consider any of that. We're just going to see how this season pans out. And if we then look at the injuries which we had at the start of the season, we can see that we have Diallo out for 3-4 months, Malacia for 4-5 months, Martial up to 4 weeks, and Lindelof with just a small injury. Now we know where we are with the squad, what kind of difficulties we're going to face. We can look at the squad overview, which is always where I start before picking any sort of tactic. All of this, of course, is going to change because as players come into the squad, we're going to get a much clearer understanding of how they affect the team. It looks like we've got slimmer players, we've got younger age groups, 25, we've got a decent number of international caps, but very high wage. In all positions, decision making, not great. First touch, very good. Passing, good. Well, that could certainly be something to consider for tactics. Strength, work rate, not very good. If you consider the teams who are doing well, they're very high working, but somehow we do have teamwork. And if you look at the squad and how they actually play under Ten Hag, I wouldn't say that there is much teamwork sometimes at the moment this season. Last season was a different matter where they did seem to be working together. If you look at the goalkeepers, obviously we don't have Onana, but kicking is very poor at the goalkeepers we do have. Don't have Buendia, so we can take very little from this page. For defence, we can actually see it's quite well rated. We got good tackling. Heading doesn't seem great. Jumping reach is okay. Marking is good. Positioning is good. Strength, good. We also got pace and acceleration. All that is actually hinting at playing a sort of higher line, because if you're not good at heading, you don't really want to be putting yourself at risk. Our midfield can't tackle for bleep, which is, again, pretty terrible. But we don't have some players in that position at the moment. But the rest of the things are quite good, apart from decision making. For our strikers, doesn't seem to be any heading, any jumping. They're okay at finishing, okay at long shots. However, anticipation and off the ball movements, very bad. But we have pace and acceleration. That is more leaning towards something which is quicker paced, because you want to not think too much, not get in a position where you're trying to break people down. And you can almost think of that as sort of Ole Solskjaer, where he just played counter-attacking football, and he did quite well with that for a while. Overall, on the physical aspects, all seems pretty decent here, apart from jumping and strength, which goes back to that idea of the heading, but also means that we're quite weak, so people can push us around. I'm thinking of Arsenal back when they were quite weak, but had a really good technical side and made up for it in that way. All of the mental state at the moment seems below average, apart from we're very aggressive. They're brave with a bit of flair, and here we see that we've got off the ball movement and teamwork, so that's quite interesting because the strikers are very poor off the ball, but the overall team is good off the ball. So that's quite a curious one. This seems again sort of mixed bag in terms of our technical play, crossing, dribbling, finishing. First touch is okay. Again, heading, long shots, long throws, marking, all below par. The penalties are good, so hey, if we can get a lot of penalties, we might do well. So I think here our primary tactic is going to be the vertical tiki-taka, because we do have quite good passes of the ball, but we don't really want to be messing around and holding it up too much and slowing the game down to the point where we have to then break down a big block of defence. There's going to be a lot of games where we do have to do that, and I think we're going to find those difficult. And as this tactic wants to be a high defensive line, high press, try and catch teams on the front foot, I think that we want to have more people up at the top of the pitch. So we're not going to play that 3 in midfield. We're going to have 2 sort of holding midfielders and essentially get Bruno in the centre of that, just behind the striker, try to create things. We'll have a couple of backup tactics because historically, when you think back to the Beckham documentary when Manchester were really good, their tactic was pretty simple wing play. It was get your wingers in there and then get that ball into the striker. And there was always, if you look at that team back then, it was essentially a bunch of youngsters who'd come through. They were just really passionate about the team. And if you think about where Alex Ferguson spent the money, he spent it on strikers. He had Ruud van Nistelrooy, Berbatov, Cantona, Wayne Rooney, and Van Persie. And Hernandez, just to name some of them, who he brought in literally for a season, won the league, and then that was that. So I think we should have a wing play tactic as a simpler option, and we'll also just put in there a control possession tactic, just when we really need to try and slow that game down, try and hold it up, try and win, because I think there's going to be times this season when we're not the best and we are just holding out. So I didn't upgrade to the FM23 version, so I'm quite looking forward to getting into the new features in this one, when these is the new tactics, set pieces. Historically, man marking has been a safe bet. I think we'll go for a hybrid. We'll try and get the best of both worlds. Obviously you don't get the full impact of either. You'll get a sort of middle of the road option. I think from there, we're going to have people in both posts. You always see something going in. We'll try and avoid giving easy goals. We'll try and counter attack when we do get it because we've got fast players. We'll keep a balanced approach. When attacking, I think we're going to go for the classic near post. Again, we'll take that balanced approach. And I quite like the outswinger just to set up initially. So this set piece editor seems fairly smooth. It seems to have picked up the creators, the box threats, the arrow threats on its own. Seem fairly happy with what it's done here. I think we're just going to leave that as that is and move on. What I would like to do is just to add in a second routine, which is just a short corner routine, and I think that we're just going to use both of them, let them average out and see how that goes at the beginning, and if they're working or not working, we'll just change them as the season goes on. So I think we've about covered how we're going to approach this season. We have the tactics set up, we have some set pieces basic set up, and in the next video we'll get a glimpse of how that pre-season went and how the first games of the season will go. So I hope you've enjoyed the episode. I hope you found this interesting. If you have, please hit the like button, let me know, and I'll keep making the videos, and hopefully see you in the next video.